10 years ago, I had this list in my head of outsize and outlandish fish that I wanted to catch from around the world. I never dreamt that I'd get to the end of that list, but I have, and then some.
For 9 seasons, Jeremy Wade was the Indiana Jones of the water. He caught things that science said shouldn't exist. Then, he quit. The network told us he had finished the list.
So, it's with very mixed feelings that I've decided to end my River Monsters journey.
But here is the catch. Insiders suggest the show was canceled because it was getting too dangerous. Not just for Wade, but for the secrets he was uncovering. From radioactive mutants in Chernobyl to the silent extinction of apex predators, Wade was seeing things we weren't supposed to see. Today, we reveal the shocking truth behind the cancellation and the wild theories that refuse to go away. The truth about the end. For years, we all just nodded along. When River Monsters aired its final episode in 2017, the explanation was neat, tidy, and honestly, a little too perfect to be true. Jeremy Wade, the guy with the silver hair and the nerves of steel, looked into the camera and told us he was done because he had caught them all. It sounded legendary. It was like a video game player beating the final boss and turning off the console. It made him sound like the ultimate hunter who had conquered the planet. But here is the catch. That story was basically a PR stunt. It was a cover for a much darker, messier reality that was unfolding behind the scenes. Now, at 69 years old, Wade has finally let his guard down in recent interviews, and the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fit together. The cancellation wasn't a victory lap. It was a rescue mission. The show didn't end because the list was finished. It ended because the entire premise of the show was collapsing under the weight of reality. Basically, the show was eating itself alive. In the early days, Wade was an explorer discovering new worlds. By the end, he felt more like a coroner performing an autopsy. He wasn't just catching fish anymore. He was documenting their funeral. The monsters he was famous for were vanishing. And we aren't just talking about bad luck fishing days. We are talking about a systematic disappearance. But here is where it gets sketchy. There is a wild theory floating around the internet that the cancellation was actually pushed by higher powers. Think about it. Wade was going into countries like India, Brazil, and Russia, and he wasn't just showing fish. He was showing massive industrial pollution. He was showing mercury poisoning from illegal gold mines. He was showing dams that were destroying entire ecosystems. Some fans believe that the big wigs, the corporations, and maybe even government officials, didn't like what Wade was uncovering. River Monsters was supposed to be entertainment, but it was accidentally becoming a whistleblower documentary exposing environmental crimes. Did someone tap the network on the shoulder and say, "Hey, shut this down"? It sounds crazy, but look at the timing. The show was canceled right as Wade started getting more vocal about conservation and pollution. The network executives didn't want a show about depression, empty nets, and corporate greed. They wanted adrenaline. They wanted teeth. They wanted a horrific scene of a monster eating a person, not the sad reality of a person poisoning a river. And get this. While Wade was battling this moral crisis about the environment, his body was quietly falling apart. You see, television is great at lying to us. It makes danger look cool. It adds dramatic drums and fast cuts. But in reality, the physical toll on a man in his 60s doing the most dangerous job on Earth was catastrophic. We are talking about permanent damage that makeup couldn't hide anymore. The official press release said the show had run its course. But insiders knew the truth. The production had become a logistical nightmare. Costs were skyrocketing. Visa issues were getting people arrested. And the cash cow nature of the show was drying up alongside the rivers. Discovery and Animal Planet were shifting gears at the time. They didn't want expensive, high-risk expeditions into war zones anymore. They wanted safe, family-friendly content. Filming a puppy bowl is cheap. Filming Jeremy Wade almost dying in the Congo is very, very expensive and comes with massive insurance liabilities. What most people don't realize is that Wade actually wanted to keep going, but in a different way. He wanted to pivot. He wanted to use his platform to show the world the truth about what was happening to our water, But that is not what brings in the advertising dollars. So, the network and the production team agreed to part ways. They crafted the "I caught them all" narrative to save face. It was a noble lie, designed to protect the legacy of the show and keep the reruns valuable. But now, looking back with fresh eyes, we can see the cracks in the final seasons. The urgency wasn't about finding the fish, it was about finding anything with a pulse. The mystery wasn't what is in the water. The mystery became, is there anything left? It is a shocking realization for fans who grew up idolizing the chase. We thought we were watching a cool adventure show. In reality, we were watching a man struggle against the end of the world. And for Jeremy, the silence of the rivers was louder than any monster he ever caught. But the silence of the water was nothing compared to the noise of his own bones breaking. The invisible wounds. You see, Jeremy Wade made it look easy. That was his job. He stood on the edge of an unstable aluminum boat, calm and collected, explaining the biology of a lethal fish while holding a rod that was about to snap in half. He looked invincible. But what the cameras didn't show, what they couldn't show, was the sheer physical destruction happening to his body. Everyone talks about the big fish, but nobody talks about the plane crash. This is one of those stories that sounds like a movie script, but it is 100% real. During a scouting trip in the Amazon, the small propeller plane Wade was flying and lost power. Just like that. Silence in the cockpit. The plane plummeted into the jungle canopy. It crashed through the trees and slammed into the ground. It was a miracle, literally a statistical impossibility, that anyone walked away from that wreckage. Most people would quit their job right there. They would take the insurance money and go live on a golf course. Wade just dusted himself off, checked his gear, and went back to the water. But here is the wild theory. Some people think that the crash changed him. There is a concept called quantum immortality, where you survive a death event and shift into a slightly different timeline. Fans joke that Wade actually died in that crash, and the version we saw in later seasons was a man living on borrowed time. It sounds insane, but look at the look in his eyes in the later seasons. It is the look of a man who knows he shouldn't be here, and that is putting it lightly. The list of injuries Wade sustained reads like a medical horror story. Let's talk about the Congo. He went there chasing the Goliath tigerfish, but he came back with something else: malaria. And not just a mild case of the flu. This was cerebral malaria, the kind that kills you in days if you are not careful. He was miles from a real hospital, lying in a sweat-soaked tent, shaking with fever, his brain cooking inside his skull. He later admitted that it took him months to feel normal again. He was having hallucinations. He described it as a solid blow to his system. And then there is the radiation. Do you remember the Chernobyl episode? Wade went into the exclusion zone to catch a catfish. He was literally fishing in nuclear fallout. He wore a dosimeter to measure the radiation. He caught a fish that had been swimming in radioactive soup for generations. Here is a crazy thought. We know radiation messes with DNA. Wade spent days there. Did he bring something back? Not a monster, but a cellular change? It is pure speculation, but putting yourself in a nuclear disaster zone for a TV show is the definition of high risk. But the scariest moment came from the fish itself. We all know the Arapaima. It is a prehistoric giant, covered in armor scales, basically a living dinosaur that breathes air. During filming, one of these massive creatures, weighing over 150 pounds, slammed directly into Jeremy's chest. Doctors later compared the impact to a car crash happening at 30 miles per hour without a seatbelt. The force was so violent it could have stopped his heart instantly. It is called commotio cordis, a blow to the chest at the exact wrong millisecond of a heartbeat that causes sudden death. Wade survived, but for weeks he was in agony. He was filming episodes while his chest felt like it had been hit with a sledgehammer. Every breath was a struggle. And get this, he also has permanent damage to his arm. During a battle with a stingray in Thailand, a creature the size of a grand piano and shaped like a UFO, Wade tore a bicep muscle. He didn't stop reeling. He finished the scene because the camera was rolling, but that arm never fully healed. It is a constant reminder of the price he paid for our entertainment. Then there was the lightning. Filming on open water is a recipe for disaster when storms roll in. During one shoot, the sound recordist was struck by lightning while standing right next to Wade. The bolt missed Jeremy by inches. The sound guy survived, but he was left with burns and severe trauma. Some fans have a curse theory. They believe that Wade was entering sacred waters, places protected by local spirits or entities, and the elements were fighting back. The lightning, the malaria, the plane crash. It wasn't just bad luck, it was a warning. The Earth was telling him to stop. By the time Season 9 rolled around, Wade was pushing 60. He was still hauling 100-pound gear cases through mud, sleeping in hammocks with spiders, and eating food that would make a goat sick. His body was screaming for a break. The audience didn't see the limp or the exhaustion in his eyes, but the crew did. They knew the clock was ticking. It wasn't just about being tough, it was about basic biology. You can only gamble with your life so many times before the house wins. And Jeremy knew he was running out of chips. But while his body was breaking, his mind was fighting a battle against an even bigger enemy: the logistics of chaos. It is not that simple, though. We sit on our couches and assume the hardest part of the show was catching the fish. Wrong. The hardest part was getting to the river without getting arrested, kidnapped, or killed by humans. River Monsters was not filmed on a soundstage in Hollywood. It was filmed in some of the most unstable, dangerous regions on the planet. The logistics were a nightmare that would make a military general sweat. We are talking about moving thousands of pounds of sensitive, expensive camera equipment into the Congo, the deepest Amazon, and remote parts of India, where outsiders are viewed with extreme suspicion. Every border crossing was a gamble. The crew was detained multiple times. In some countries, they were accused of being spies. Think about it. A group of Westerners showing up in a remote strategic area with high-tech cameras, satellite phones, and sonar equipment. To a paranoid local commander, that doesn't look like a fishing show. That looks like the CIA. There is a theory that in one specific country, the crew actually captured footage of something they weren't supposed to see. Maybe a military operation or an illegal cartel crossing. And they were forced to delete the tapes to get out alive. It is the lost episode theory. Fans speculate there are hours of footage locked in a vault somewhere that show the true danger of these trips. And here is the deal. The show had to be authentic. That was Wade's golden rule. If they didn't catch a fish, they didn't catch a fish. They couldn't just go to a pet store and buy a monster to throw in the water like some other fake survival shows do. This meant they would spend weeks in a location, burning through tens of thousands of dollars, with zero footage to show for it. Imagine the pressure. You have a network breathing down your neck, demanding a hit episode. You have spent $500,000 getting to a remote village in Guyana. And the fish aren't biting. The water levels are too high. The guides are confused. Most hosts would fake it. Wade refused. This commitment to truth made the production incredibly difficult. There were episodes where they caught the monster in the last hour of the last day. The tension you see on screen, that wasn't acting. That was the crew realizing they might go home with nothing and potentially get the show canceled for wasting money. Also, the environment itself was fighting them. We are talking about flash floods that washed away base camps in the middle of the night, swarms of bees that forced the crew to dive into the water to escape. In one instance, a boat capsized nearly drowned the director. There is a crazy story about the Mekong lights. While filming in Southeast Asia, some crew members reported seeing strange lights in the water and sky that couldn't be explained. The locals called them Naga fireballs. The crew never officially aired this because it was too out there, but it adds to the theory that River Monsters was brushing up against the paranormal. The audience sees the 40-minute polished final product. They don't see the 3 weeks of hell that went into it. They don't smell the rotting bait, the diesel fumes, or the fear sweat. By the end, the production team was burnt out. The turnover rate for crew members was high because very few people could handle the grind. It takes a special kind of crazy to think that sleeping in a tent surrounded by jaguars and cartels is a good career move. Wade was the anchor. He had to be the calm in the storm. But even an anchor can drag you down if the water gets too rough. The network executives started looking at the spreadsheets. They saw the danger, the insurance costs, and the unpredictability. They started asking if it was worth it. And while the suits worried about money, Wade found something that made the money seem pointless. He found silence. Into the void. This is the part that hurts. This is the core of the mystery. The reason Jeremy Wade stopped wasn't just because he was tired or the network was cheap. It was because the monsters were gone. In the early seasons, the rivers were alive. You could feel the danger vibrating in the water. But as the years went on, Wade noticed a terrifying shift. He would travel to legendary spots, places famous for giant catfish or massive rays, and find nothing. It wasn't just bad luck, it was a pattern. The locals would tell him, "Oh, we haven't seen a big one in 10 years. Or, "The water changed color last year and the fish all floated to the top." Wade wasn't just a fisherman, he was a biologist. He knew what he was seeing. He was seeing the collapse of freshwater ecosystems in real time. Take the Ganges River in India. It is considered holy, but it is also one of the most polluted waterways on Earth. Wade went there looking for a giant man-eating catfish, the goonch. He found it, but he also found a river choking on plastic, chemicals, and industrial waste. It wasn't a habitat anymore. It was a graveyard. Here is a wild theory for you. Some cryptozoologists believe that these river monsters aren't just dying, they are retreating. The hollow earth theory suggests that many ancient species came from subterranean caverns and are now returning to the depths to escape human pollution. Did Wade suspect that the fish weren't just dead, but had moved somewhere we couldn't follow? Probably not, but the sudden disappearance of these apex predators feels almost supernatural. In the Amazon, gold mining was dumping mercury into the water. This poison travels up the food chain. The big fish, the apex predators Wade hunted, were soaking up all that toxin. They were getting sick. They were getting smaller. The fascination of the show relied on giant, healthy beasts, but reality was giving them sick, stunted survivors. It became harder and harder to produce the monster content the fans wanted because the monsters were shrinking. Everyone is obsessed with the Loch Ness Monster, but Wade was watching real monsters disappear before his eyes. The sawfish, for example. It is a creature that looks like it swam out of a sci-fi movie with a chainsaw on its face. It is critically endangered. Finding one isn't an adventure anymore. It is a miracle. Wade realized he couldn't keep making a show about scary animals when the animals were the ones who should be scared of us. The narrative felt wrong. He felt like he was demonizing these creatures at the exact moment they needed protection. He tried to pivot. He tried to include more conservation messages in the show. He showed the garbage. He showed the nets, but the network pushed back. They said, "People want to see the fight, not the trash." This created a conflict in Wade's soul. He loved these rivers. He owed his career to them, and he was watching them die. Continuing the show in its original format felt like a betrayal. He didn't want to encourage more people to go out and harass these dwindling populations. There is also the alien invasive theory. In some episodes, Wade hunted invasive species like the Asian carp in America. These fish take over like a virus. Some theorists believe these invasive species are bioweapons or glitches in the ecosystem, designed to wipe out the native monsters. Wade was watching a war between the ancient world and the new artificial world. And the ancient world was losing. So, when he said he ran out of monsters, he was speaking a tragic truth. He didn't run out of species to catch. He ran out of places where they were allowed to thrive. The rivers are going quiet, and we are the ones holding the mute button. Do you think Wade should have kept going? Or did he make the right call to walk away before the rivers died completely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into the dark side of TV history. Thanks for watching.